couldn't start slipping now. Not when she was so close. You got a weird sense of humor. They pulled up into Audrey. No, you got a weird sense of humor. They pulled up into Audrey's driveway and sat there with the car still rumbling. Here we are. Can't stay. Well, tell me how this goes. I gotta know if this is for real. Lyra stepped out and was about to get her guitar out of the back seat. She hesitated. I think I can afford to pay you for this now. He twisted around in his seat to look back at her. Oh, right. Forget about that. Yeah, go ahead and take it for now. We'll figure that out later, he said. You've got more important things to worry about right now. Don't worry. She nodded and slid the case out. As she pulled away, he waved. As he pulled away, she waved, then turned to head inside. Lyra's legs were shaking. She wasn't sure how to feel at the moment. She knew who her dad was, and yet something was just off about the whole thing. She went up the stairs and into Audrey's room, pushing the door open. I know my last name. Audrey was seated at her computer. It took her a moment to process that. She spun herself around in the chair. You... What? How? The words all came tumbling out at once. Randall recognized my parents. I'd never shown him the picture before. My dad's a writer. He lives somewhere called Pennsylvania, I think. The guy from your band? How does he know that? How does he know them? He doesn't know them, personally. He showed me one of my dad's books. His name is Thomas McLachos. I can't say that, Lyra said. She pointed at the computer. You can look him up on that, can't you? Yeah, sure, but a writer? Nathan said he'd heard of him, too. I guess he's famous. He writes books about magic. I wouldn't know him, then. I don't read a lot of fantasy. I know. It's so boring, isn't it? Nobody needs magic, Lyra said. It was good to know there were other humans with some sense. But this might be it. I think he really might be my dad. Lyra, I wouldn't listen to everything Randall says. Besides, you said they were having a party. He probably drank a lot last night. I'd like to say he means well, but I saw a picture myself. I know it's the same man. Lyra glanced back at the computer. She still wasn't sure how it worked, but humans could use that to find out just about anything. Could you try? Audrey sat down, spinning the chair to face the keyboard. I'll see. Just don't get your hopes up. The screen lit up. Now, how do you spell the name? That name. It sounded like it was Greek or something. Lyra tried to remember. M-I-C-H... Never mind. Google autofilled it. Here's the Wikipedia page. Lyra started over Audrey's shoulder. Stared over Audrey's shoulder. The computer screen had words all over it, like a book, but it was glowing and they kept on moving away from her eyes. He finally stopped on a photograph of a man in the corner of the screen. He looked older. His hair was a little gray instead of black, and his beard had been trimmed down, but Lyra thought that maybe he looked like an older version of the man in her photograph, her dad. That's him, she said, pointing her finger out. I know it is. Audrey leaned forward and with her head on her hand as she squinted at the text. Let's see. Biography. He lives near Pennsylvania. His wife is a freelance artist, and they have a daughter? No, wait, that's not... Philadelphia. That can't be right. Lyra leaned in close to get a better look at the page. All these tiny letters. She wasn't sure how... Philadelphia. She wasn't sure how Audrey was able to stand it. If it had just been on paper, it wouldn't be nearly so hard to read. It's what it says. So they had a daughter in 2005. Audrey leaned back in the chair and put her hands behind her head. Sorry, Lyra, but you don't look like you're 7 years old. Besides, she still lives with them. Lyra stood up, blinking. No. It has to be him. I know it is. Randall probably made a mistake. I'm not surprised. No, I looked at the picture too. It was him. He could have just looked similar. And I know it sounds great that your dad would be some successful author, but someone else would have recognized the picture in the past 15 years. Well, no. I don't think they would have. No matter who a human might be, there was no way her Canterlot family would have known him. Audrey shrugged and kept reading. It wouldn't make sense. I just don't see how your family could have had that picture, and it's somebody fairly well known, and they didn't. Her voice trailed off. Wait. They had another child, but the entire screen flashed and another set of words appeared. Here it is. Audrey scanned lines of text. It says she went missing back in 1997. Her name was... Oh my god. She leaned back in a chair, holding a hand over her mouth. Lyra McLachos. God damn it. This thing has information about me. The words had stopped moving long enough for Lyra to see her own name. She leaned down closer, one hand on the back of Audrey's chair. My name. Her name actually was Lyra. It would explain why she'd always liked the sound of it, even since reading it in a book years ago. Audrey shook her head. It's not necessarily you. It could be a coincidence. She went back to the article and the words scrolled up the screen, slow enough to read. I'll admit that everything fits, but with the date, you would have been a year old about... It says the McLachos family was robbed. Just about everything from their daughter's room was taken, including her. Audrey's mouth hung open. They made some money from the book series at that point, but there wasn't even a ransom. Everything was just gone. They never recovered anything. No signs of a break-in. Lyra grinned. No. I know about this. It all fits. This is me. I know it is. Like Princess Celestia had told her, she'd been found as an infant human in the Canterlot Gardens. Objects from her home in this world had been strewn around, including the picture that she was carrying now. Obviously, from the other end of it, it would have looked bad. Her real parents must have been devastated. Audrey stared at her. I thought you said you were adopted, Lyra. You mean you were kidnapped? And you knew about it all this time? It's not as bad as it looks. How could it not be? Well, Lyra didn't know what to say. Whatever magic had brought her into Equestria, she didn't think anyone had done it intentionally. That didn't change the fact that she had no idea what had actually happened. It's all just a misunderstanding. I ended up okay. Federal crimes aren't just misunderstandings, Audrey said. For a while I thought you might be hiding something important, repressing it. If you're really this Lyra, she spoke slowly and evenly, I really need you to tell me, where exactly did you come from, and what do you know about how you ended up here? You told me you didn't even know your parents were who your parents were. I don't. I mean, I didn't know who they were. I just knew how I... What did she say? There's really nothing wrong. My other parents loved me. They took good care of me. You've said that plenty of times. I'm not sure I believe it. They told me they found me abandoned. All they had was that photograph, but they didn't know who my parents were. There was nothing they could do to send me back anyway, and they had nothing to do with this. She gestured towards the news article that was still on the screen. Audrey put her hand on her forehead. But you won't tell me any names. Where you lived before you coming here. How did you even get to Iowa from Pennsylvania? How far did they take you? A lot farther than that, Lyra muttered. What? I didn't mean that. Not in the way you think. Audrey turned back to the news article that was still on the screen. You're not making any sense. Why can't you just tell me what happened? You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Even back in Equestria, where magic was just a part of everyday life, nobody would have believed that you could somehow end up in another world entirely. Humans definitely wouldn't accept that. They didn't believe in magic. This whole thing sounds insane. You say, to say the least, but somehow I believe it. Somehow it makes sense. There's just one thing, Audrey said. If you come forward claiming you're Lyra McClacos, there's going to be an investigation. You can tell me if you want, but you're definitely going to have to answer to the police and your family. I told you, it's nothing illegal. What part of it wouldn't be? Whatever Audrey thought of all her misunderstandings about human culture since she'd arrived, they were friends. That much was clear. And it would be easier to talk to her than any of the human authorities. Well, I really am Lyra McClacos from Philadelphia. It was hard not to habitually say the name of the city in Equestria. She took a deep breath and continued. Now I am a human. But for the past 15 years, I was a unicorn.